Friends, although airplanes are considered one of the safest modes of transportation in the world, just imagine if a plane starts swaying mid-air, what would be the condition of the passengers on board? In today's video, I'm going to tell you about those terrifying in-flight incidents that even compelled the pilots to recite prayers. So let's get started. Friends, the video you are watching shows an airplane flying over the Andes Mountains in South America. This plane was traveling from San Diego to Libya. As it reached the mountains, a passenger took out his phone and started recording the breathtaking scenery, unaware of what he was about to capture. While he was recording, the plane suddenly began to shake and intense vibrations started. Before anyone could comprehend what was happening, the plane dropped several feet in a jolt. The scene looked as though the plane might crash into the mountains at any moment. The pilot was relentlessly trying to control the aircraft, but it refused to move forward and kept bobbing up and down in one place. The passengers on board were screaming in terror as if it were their last moments. In reality, there was a violent windstorm in the mountains, preventing the plane from advancing. Finally, the pilot changed the plane's course, otherwise nothing could have saved it from disaster. You won't believe it, but this 3-hour flight ended up taking 9 hours to reach its destination. This incident was truly horrifying. Friends, in April 2011, a passenger plane was flying from Serbia to an airport in Switzerland. Along the way, it had to pass over the French Alps. As the plane reached the mountains, it suddenly started shaking violently. During the turbulence, a couple began recording a video thinking it was just a normal occurrence and were filming it for fun. Standing nearby were two air hostesses who were struggling to control the food trolley. While the couple was still filming, the plane suddenly tilted to one side, causing the trolley to fall onto them. As soon as the plane tilted, screams began to echo from all directions. In this incident, the couple, 2 crew members, and 10 more passengers were injured. Some people even suffered burns from hot beverages. It felt as though the plane might crash at any moment. However, fortunately, the incident occurred not far from its destination. The pilot managed to land the aircraft safely, but what happened was nothing short of a nightmare. Friends, on the afternoon of June 2, 2022, a Red Airways flight landed at Miami Airport. This plane was arriving from the Dominican Republic and had 131 passengers on board. As the plane landed and was taxiing on the runway, suddenly its left landing gear collapsed and the aircraft began to shake violently. While the plane continued to move, it felt as though it was rolling over large rocks instead of a smooth runway. A passenger who was recording the landing on video captured the entire scene. As you can see, the plane was jolting severely, and the passengers inside were screaming in fear, as if there was no hope of survival. Just moments later, the left wing of the plane broke off and fell, while the right landing gear caught fire. The pilot somehow managed to bring the plane to a stop, but when it finally halted, flames and smoke were emerging from it. All the passengers hurriedly evacuated the plane. Thankfully, no one was injured, but this incident was nothing short of a nightmare. Friends, it was October 25, 2019. A Frontier Airlines flight was traveling from Denver to Baltimore. The journey began smoothly, but as the landing time approached, the plane suddenly encountered severe turbulence. The plane was not only shaking violently, but also dropped rapidly 2 or 3 times, making it feel like it might crash to the ground at any moment. During these jolts, a girl who was sitting without her seatbelt fell inside the plane and was seriously injured. One of the passengers on board was recording the entire incident. People were screaming in terror and crying, praying for their lives to be saved. In reality, the aircraft was passing through a violent windstorm that was preventing it from moving forward. The pilot was making continuous efforts to stabilize the plane, but despite his attempts, it became uncontrollable. You won't believe it, but the plane experienced this turbulence for a full 30 minutes before it finally managed to safely pass through the storm. However, only those on board can truly describe what they endured during those terrifying moments. Friends, in December 2023, a China Eastern Airlines flight was traveling from Shanghai to Hong Kong. When the plane was just 20 minutes away from landing, suddenly one of its blades malfunctioned. As soon as the blade stopped working, the plane started shaking severely. It was shaking in the air as if someone was shaking it forcefully. During this, a passenger began recording the incident on their mobile phone. As you can see, the plane's seats and the items on them were shaking as if someone was forcefully moving them. Just imagine what the people sitting in those seats must have been going through at that moment. Everyone was so terrified that they were silent, unable to make a sound. While these shakes were still happening, suddenly there was a loud noise of something crashing on the left wing of the plane, followed by the smell of smoke spreading everywhere. From this scene, it seemed like the plane would never land safely and might even crash. But somehow the pilot managed to land the plane, and fortunately there were no casualties. A similar incident occurred in March 2022 with a Lift Airways aircraft. This flight was traveling from Austin, Texas to Germany. When the plane reached an altitude of 37,000 feet, a severe storm suddenly hit, and along with it, heavy rain started. Due to the pressure from the wind, the plane's balance was disrupted to such an extent that it suddenly dropped by 4,000 feet. Passengers who were not wearing their seatbelts were thrown to the ceiling of the plane and were severely injured. Even food and other items fell and were destroyed. After watching this video, you can imagine how terrifying the scene was and what the people on board must have gone through. The pilot made an emergency landing, and the injured passengers were immediately taken to the hospital. After watching this video, perhaps anyone would think twice before traveling by plane. So friends, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video.